What's going on, everybody? My name is Jason and I make posters. Today I'm going to be taking a random CD out of my collection and making a poster out of it, and we're going to be making a Swiss poster today with the font Helvetica instead of Helvetica. I've always liked this font, and it's on Adobe fonts, so it's got a bunch of different weights, so I'm going to try it out for a Swiss poster. And we're also going to break out my Swiss design grid, something we haven't done in a while. Alright, well, let's find out what album we're working with. Alright, so I got my CD collection on my clipboard, so we'll paste it in here and pick a random album. Hold Me Up. So that's one of the early albums from the Goo Goo Dolls. Let me go grab it. Okay, so here's the album right here, and I've got to confess, I do not know this album very well. I've only listened to it one time. I didn't even know about it until a couple of months ago when I was in a record store and I just saw it, and the cover really drew me to it. In this album's case, we already have a defined color palette. This will be interesting. It's not like I have a ton of memories with this album and I don't really know it that well. I've only listened to it one time, but maybe after doing this video, I'll pop it in the CD player. All right, let's head over to Illustrator and get started. All right, I've got both my Swiss grid and the album cover dropped in here, and let me lock those grids real quick. Okay, there we go. We're good. They're not going to move. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hide those just for a second so I can put together a color palette. All right, so I really like this color palette, and when you zoom in here, this is really cool because you've got some overlapping colors right here. The yellow and the blue are making green, and then also you've got the purple that's just kind of sitting on top of it. So we've got a nice vibrant color palette to work with here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get some shapes down. I'm probably going to be working with some circles, and I don't know, maybe I'll even make some blobs out of them or something like that to kind of mimic the album cover. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to do, like, you know, a random pattern. It's not going to be exactly the same, but I may do some overlapping as well. I'm really just going to kind of play around with it. And then what I'd like to do this time, which is a little bit different from last time, normally I lay down my type first. This time I want to lay down my elements first and then work the type around that. So I'm just going to speed this up and I'm going to see what I can put together. Really, the whole goal here was just to make sure that the poster was having as much fun as the album cover was. So I think we've done a pretty good job with that. And really, that's kind of the key when you're doing stuff like this, is to, you know, just to have fun with it and try all kinds of different layouts and see what you can come up with. You can definitely break your own rules a little bit here. And whenever you break the rules, just make sure that you do it effectively. Going outside of the grids here, you know, which is something that I tend to do a lot when I do these videos. And I'm like, well, what's the point of the grid? All right, so now let's lay down our type. And I like how each one of those are on their individual lines on the album cover. This needs to be nice and large. So maybe 240, something like that. And then we'll just go in and adjust the leading. It can be pretty tight, so you can definitely do that. I may decrease it a little bit just so we can fit it into an area nicely without having to cramp it. We'll align it to this line right here. And normally I wouldn't butt it up against that blue box right there, but I actually really do like how that looks. And now that I'm looking at this, I think we can increase the size a little bit more since it is the main type. I'll just do even spacing between these elements right here. All right, so I'm gonna copy this over here. And it's interesting because we've got the all caps right here for the band name and then the all lowercase for the album title. So I think I'll just kind of mirror that same thing. And I wanna try putting it up here in this black box. I think that's interesting. Or I may just align it over here. All right, so now we'll align this over here to this grid. All right, so I like this a lot. Let's go ahead and grab some additional text so we can lay down on this. All right, so I have the release date in here. I think I'm gonna shorten that, and we will align it with this type right here. I'm gonna go in, I just realized this. I'm gonna go in, I don't think this was here before. I don't remember it anyway. I'm just gonna line it up there. So we've got an interesting pattern here with how the type is flowing, and this is what I tend to do with some posters. I try to do it like a triangle pattern, so something like this, and I'll just kind of show how I'm illustrating it. Just kind of having the text flowing from, like, you know, this point, and this point. It just gives it a really good sense of balance here. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut this little portion off right here, this little blue circle. I'm gonna cut that off. There we go, looking good. All right, so now we can pull this into Photoshop, and there's a certain effect that I wanna do with it. All right, so I got it pasted into Photoshop here, and I've got a glued paper texture that we're gonna apply to this. Just lay it on top right here, and I'm probably gonna rotate that, or maybe not. I think I'll leave it the way it is. And then just cycle through the blending modes. And as you can see, we're just gonna apply this texture above the artwork itself. And I also just realized that we're gonna have to go in and change the black to not 100% black. You need to raise it up just a little bit, maybe to about 10%. That way we can actually see our effects. Now we go back to Photoshop, let it update. There we go, that's much better. All right, so now we can actually see those effects. And now I'm just gonna choose the best one that I think is gonna work with it. That's an interesting color palette. Of course, we can just invert the colors, and you know, we get mostly what we have, what we've designed there. Divide is interesting. I really like that a lot. Although I think some of the earlier ones up here are actually going to be the best for the texture that we're going for. Yeah, I think multiply is probably going to be the best looking one. And then we'll quickly do a Gaussian blur here. Just kind of give it a little bit more dimension. And then finally, we'll add a layer of grain. And I'll add a vignette on there just to give it even more depth. All right, there we go. Looking good. The Goo Goo Dolls Hold Me Up promotional poster, I guess. I guess this would be a promotional poster. Promotional Swiss design poster that we put together in Illustrator and then finished off in Photoshop. All right, well, thanks a lot for watching along with me as I made that poster. That was a fun color palette to work with. That's what drew me to the album in the first place. I didn't even know it existed until a couple months ago. I'll have to give this a listen right after I'm done shooting. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe at the bottom and click the bell for notifications to be notified of all future content. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.